recording. All
Yeah,
right.
Marina's probably so mad at you. She missed last week. She was all ready for the recording. And then, see, Marina, I'm not the only technological one that screws things up.
Yeah, I did a great
Ryan
job.
does it every now and then.
I so missed it. Yes, really missed it. Never mind. I'm here now.
Good to have you
you're
back.
Good, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was life altering. We solved so many world problems and then we lost the recording.
Yeah, we forgot everything we said.
Blew it. What was I going to say? Okay, so all right, so we are recording. We're good to go. Yeah. So what's a good word, Odin?
Oh, all kinds of good things happening. You and I were going to play a little golf tomorrow morning. Get back to our mandatory golf Friday, which I did play last Friday, but just not in our normal group. But that'll be good to get back out to Ruth Park. Oh, let me show you guys something real quick. This is kind of cool.
Always ready with the props. Dead air. Oh, you know what? I need to ask. Let's wait a second. Hey, Jeff, were you able to? Speaking of technical difficulties, we had a bit of a crisis this morning. All the podcast episodes disappeared.
Yeah, so if it has not been resolved, so everybody on the line, please keep your fingers crossed. But a couple of people made us aware of the fact that the podcast episodes aren't available on iTunes. I haven't checked Spotify. I assume it's probably the same. But when I logged into our media host, all of our podcast episodes have been wiped clean from our media host, which means 338 episodes of the 18 Strong podcast have gone missing in action right now. So it was a billing issue. I had the wrong email address on the account. And so they sent me a couple emails saying that our credit card had expired. We needed to upload the new one. And they wiped the account clean pretty quick on us. So
I'm sure they can recover it. That seems crazy.
You would think their job is to store media. You would think that they held on to it longer than a week after not processing that. So anyway, so yeah, keep your fingers crossed that the 18 Strong podcast episodes come back and we don't have to reload all 338 of those back in there. Yeah. But what I went to go grab was no big deal. Just this first place trophy that we won at the Folds of Honor tournament here in St. Louis on this past Monday. But really, really cool event. Obviously, Folds of Honor started by our friend, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney. And St. Louis has a big chapter. And so they had like 300 and something golfers in this event. They used three different courses. It was phenomenal. And thanks to our buddy Brandon Johnson, I had possibly the coolest ball marker out there from the Veteran Golf Association, which Brandon gave us those a couple of years ago. So I got a lot of compliments on that. And I drained a couple pretty good putts using that thing. So thanks to Brandon. But no, that really cool. Obviously, one of our favorite charities and organizations. They just do everything top notch. So that was really cool. And they give out a pretty slick award for first place, which is proudly displayed here in the podcast studio.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, that ball marker, it's the heaviest one in the game. That VGA one is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
You know it's in your pocket.
You put that down, you get lots of comments from people about having a hockey puck for a for a ball marker.
I've heard a sewer lid a couple times.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It's pretty awesome. Nice. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm excited tomorrow. I forget where we were last Friday that we couldn't do it, but yeah, the 6:26 tee time tomorrow morning with the rest of the dew sweepers. Now they've got tee times that are like 5:50.
I know.
That's a little bit too early for me.
It's so light out these days, and it's staying pretty late. So lots of time for golf. For sure. Hey, did you happen to see? So just real quick on some local golf stuff, or not local, but local guy. So the John Deere Classic is this week. And local guy Chris Nagel, who we have had on the show before, he Monday qualified into the U.S. Open 2 weeks ago. Monday qualified into the John Deere, and he is currently sitting tied for third place right now which is kind of cool. He made
Is
the cut.
he-
Made the cut in the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Um,
Is he still an amateur, or he's got to be a pro now?
No,
right?
he's a pro. He's
Okay.
played a little Corn Ferry. He's kind of one of those guys that has been on the mini tours. He's bounced up and bounced down and back and forth. But he's now made the cut twice in the U.S. Open, and he's playing in the John Deere. Shot 5 under today, so he's the guy
Good
can
Lord.
play.
Clearly.
Guy can play, but I think he's around. He's early 30s for sure, maybe even 33, 34.
You know,
He's a
have,
journeyman now.
Yeah, he does not have a first place Folds of Honor trophy though.
Well, I haven't asked him, but not many people do, so he probably doesn't.
It's a rarefied air.
Right?
Nice. Yeah. So this week our theme has kind of been, and our theme is always keeping it simple. You know, the simple is, 99% of the time the best answer. But even further than that, we're kind of talking about just working smarter, not harder, which we see too often. And I like your email, it comes from the Gatorade commercials where you see everybody's dripping with sweat, and that everybody equates that with, okay, that's how you get a good workout. I know you and I kind of brag about it. Not like figuratively, like literally, I don't really break a sweat when we're pumping an iron. You frozen that now, you're
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I think we all froze. So yeah, I kind of go back and forth sometimes at not wanting to make it sound like it needs to be easy, right? Because
Right.
that message can get misconstrued as well. But to your point, every commercial, every advertisement that we see that has to do with fitness and working out, it's lifting a ton of weight, it's sweating profusely, it's being super drained and dead tired at the end of your workouts. And there are times when, especially like back in the day when we were playing soccer, or you're training for a sport that involves some sort of cardiovascular activity, soccer, football, rugby. I mean, there's so many different sports where, yeah, you need to be able to run and sprint and be able to tolerate being taxed and gassed and still be able to perform. But that's not necessarily our crowd, right? Like the niche here
Right.
is we want to primarily, I look at it, as almost 3 different things. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we're all staying healthy and injury free. That's kind of our number one. That's, safety first is kind of our global overarching theme. And then second, and depending on the individual, this could be interchanged. Second is either going to be looking good and feeling strong, or improving your performance on the golf course. And different people go in different waves of fluctuation of which one is more important to them. For those that are very ingrained in heavy competition with golf, typically they're going to be more skewed towards the performance side of things. But for a lot of us that are not, looking to become highly competitive amateurs or professionals, it's going to be, I think the aesthetics piece is going to play into a lot of that as well. Aesthetics,
Right.
being strong, staying healthy, all of those things.
Looking good.
Looking good. And those things don't really require you going out and killing yourself in the gym, or like, today is actually a pretty nice day here in St. Louis. We've had some 80-degree weather days, but we definitely have like 90, 95, 100 degree days with high level humidity. And I can remember when I was playing soccer, like having to go out and run on those days, and it was miserable, but you had to do it because you had to get ready for those kind of conditions. But I see people out there running now, especially like individuals that are probably, maybe just running that's their form of exercise. And I'm like, man, there's an easier or better way to do what you're trying to do right now. And so that's kind of the theme of today is, find whatever area it is. We talk a lot about mobility. We talk a lot about strength. We talk about nutrition. We talk about speed. And I think what we really want to convey is the fact that no matter what your goal is, find the most efficient way to actually achieve your goal. Don't just blindly go and do a bunch of exercises because they feel hard, but if they don't really get you closer to your objective, you're putting yourself back rather than actually moving yourself forward. And that's really what I see a lot of individuals doing. When I see firsthand in the gym, people that I know for a fact are looking to lose weight, lose fat, but kind of going about it the wrong way. There's less emphasis on the nutrition side, and there's way more emphasis on, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just kill myself and try to work off all these calories. When if you really just flipped it around and took the time, and I know that obviously, sometimes people don't want to invest that energy into the dietary portion because sometimes they're just afraid of what that looks like. That it's kind of the unknown, and they don't realize that there's ways to do it without it being miserable as well. But if they were to flip that and put the intensity into their diet, or just the habits that they have around their food and their eating and their drinking and their social life and things like that, the whole scenario could end up being a lot more enjoyable and a lot simpler.
Oh, 100%. So every morning we walk, Shirley the dog, Kendra and I do, and I see people jogging, but I never see the same person jogging too often, because jogging sucks. And I want to just wave them down, like, come on, come here. You don't need to be doing this.
Right.
Like nobody ever has a smile on their face when they're jogging.
No.
I can't stand it. And yet you and I are idiots. And, in the winters, we're doing that hill race again, that 8-mile thing. So what's wrong with us?
Well, and that just goes to show that, it's not always. That's why I don't want to just tell people stop doing the hard shit, because
right.
Sometimes you have to challenge yourself and you have to do it. But again, it's what's actually the goal here? Because for us, it is the trail run. The goal is, okay, I'm going to test myself with this activity. And so that's the end result. That's the end goal that we're looking for. So yeah, we do have to get out and go run when it's cold out, or go run for an extended period of time, where we normally wouldn't do that if we were just, looking to look better and play better golf. The running has no impact on that.
Right.
The cardiovascular effects of running do not really carry over very well to the game of golf. I would say that you're much better off probably going and doing the walking like you do, walking Shirley in the morning. I do the same thing with our dog every morning, get up and walk at least, 30 to 40 minutes. That's going to be more similar to what you're doing on the golf course. When I was doing some of the rucking, I would say that challenges you a little bit more, where you're building up the same type of muscular strength that you need when you're going up and down these hills. Half the people that listen to this show, they don't ever walk. They ride in a cart. So,
Right.
For them, the walking may not even be that big of a deal. But then you have to build in the strength piece, the balance piece, the movement piece. And we say it all the time. It's not all just about golf either. It's about, you being able to do all the things in your daily life and not get hurt, and, enjoy yourself and be able to do these things without injury or issue or those types of things. The biggest piece is finding those simple things, but then having the will and desire that's strong enough to get you to a certain goal that will force you to do these things on a very regular basis. The most successful people in any endeavor are the ones that find those most important pieces, and they just build them into being habits. And they do them on the days that they don't want to do them. They do them over and over and over. So it's not that they find the most complex or the most detailed way of doing things that is best, or it's, this new latest and greatest. It's no, they figured out what was most important, and they just do that over and over and over again. That goes for diet. If the people that really succeed in any kind of a transformation or get super lean or whatever dietary goal they have are the ones that can basically eat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. That has been the key to every time I've tried to get lean and have been successful. I find 3, 4, maybe 5 staple meals that I eat, and I just eat them for months at a time.
Right.
And you talk to our buddy Tony Soib when he was working with any kind of bodybuilders or fitness models. He's like, dude, these are the people that they can just put the same stuff in a Tupperware bin every morning and eat it for 6 months. And they're the ones that win the competitions.
And you can see why people think like the nutrition piece sounds horrible.
Right.
Because now what I found was, I think I went like 7 months and had the same lunch. Back when I had a job 15 years ago, like a turkey sandwich and cottage cheese and something else. It's fine. You know, I think you just get used to it.
You get used to it. It becomes, again, it makes your day a little bit simpler because you're not trying to plan out. I mean, if you're trying to mix up your meals, if you're trying to mix up your workouts, if you're constantly like trying to find these new things, and then eventually it's just exhausting to put in that time and that effort. I mean, talk to anybody that has tried to make different dinners for a week, or,
right.
You know, like anytime that you start to try to branch out and get creative, it takes effort. And anytime you have to expel a lot of effort for an extended period of time, it's like, man, this is getting kind of old, you know? But if you can just, I mean, honestly, I guarantee that I have eaten over 1,000 Aldi bagged salads in some variation or another, with either a can or 2 of tuna fish, or a can of chicken breast, or a chicken breast that was grilled from the night before, and it's just, I go in the basement, I grab a bag of salad, I take it with me. I have cans of tuna fish here at the office, and that is almost my lunch every single day. In fact, I just went to one of the stores and I bought a thing of pulled chicken, because I know that will go good in my salads next week, you know? So like,
oh, and it will. Do you put dressing on that?
Yeah, it comes with the dressing in the
Okay.
salads. And then I just get rid of, you know, if it has like the little chips or croutons or whatever, and
Right.
cheese, I get rid of that stuff. I use the dressing, and I use the protein, and that's typically it. Maybe I'll throw in some spinach too, to really dice it up.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, also, to be fair, on the weekends, you're not, you know, quite so regimented with any of this stuff.
Absolutely not. In fact, it's so funny, and Joan can attest to this. You know, like when I'm not like in regular settings, I eat like regular people, right? Like if I'm out with people, I'll be in a scenario where I'm at like a golf event or something, and you know, like whatever they have, I'll eat it. Like say it's a box lunch and it's a sandwich and chips and a cookie, and I eat it. Like people look at me like, you eat that stuff? I'm like, yeah, like I'm not a robot, and like I do it 80 or 90% of the time the other way, you know, the healthy way, the way that we preach. So when I am in a setting like this, I don't have to be like the weirdo in the corner that brought my Tupperware bowl. So
I know that guy. Now,
yeah,
I've seen it firsthand, like especially at family parties. I've seen you eat like a garbage can. So
absolutely.
you've got a witness.
In fact, I pride myself on kind of being the guy in our family that people are like, oh, I bet Jeff would eat that. Like I've literally won bets at our family parties, one from your wife.
Yeah, that an entire wheel of cheese, I believe it was. Not a whole wheel, but it was an alarming amount of cheese you took down.
Yes. So yeah. So in a normal setting, right, weekends, you know, if I'm not on like the forge or something like that, yes, I'll eat like a regular person. I'll drink beer, I'll drink wine, I'll drink whiskey, whatever. Like, but the key is also not overdoing it, right? And knowing not to be an idiot with it as well. So,
right.
And then there's occasions when you can and should be an idiot, which we've had plenty of those.
Right, like the Kansas City Royals game back in college, right? dollar hot dog night and dollar beer night.
Yes, this call is going way off the rails from what I thought. But yeah, dollar hot dog night, not dollar. They didn't have dollar beer night,
No,
but it was
just
dollar hot dog night. And so myself and a couple of my roommates took that as a challenge. And I think between the three of us, we may have had 25 hot dogs.
I vaguely recall your number being 9.
I was the winner of the 25.
There were no winners in that contest because we were at this is funny. We were in New York and there's a place called Rudy's Hell's Kitchen, and every time you order a natural light, they give you a free hot dog.
Oh,
So this has been a while ago, but I said, you know what, Bodine ate 9, I'm gonna eat 10. I got to like 3 dogs. I'm like, no, that's too much.
but I bet you had the 9 natural lights.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to be rude.
All right. Before this goes too far off the rails, if you guys have any questions that not about the wheel of cheese, Brandon.
Yes,
if
that
you
was
have
an
any other
Anchorman.
questions,
An entire wheel of cheese.
throw them in there.
Yeah, we've got some other questions too when we get through the keeping it simple, stupid stuff.
Yeah. So I think a couple things I wanted to just mention. As far as keeping it simple, one of the hardest yet best ways, hardest, but then it becomes the easiest way to keep things simple is to figure out ways to build some of these things into habits. And we've talked so many times about a couple great books, Atomic Habits, Power of Habit, where when you can start to build these things in to your daily life, like right now, Ryan, it's a habit for him to go and walk Shirley in the morning for like an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So he automatically out of the gate gets a great amount of just movement and calorie burn and activity. Heck, mental health, clarity, like all the things that come with that. There's so many good things that now is just on autopilot for him. When they get up, they go walk the dog. Same for me. Like there are definitely mornings where, because I have to get up pretty early to get out and walk the dog before I get to the gym. And so there's times where I'm literally walking out the door with the dog at 5 a.m. And it's like, I really don't want to do this. But because it is a habit, and also there's some accountability there, because if I know that nobody else is going to walk the dog and she doesn't get a walk, that's not good for anybody. So, but building it into a habit. So it's like the alarm hits. Some days it's like, oh, crap. But I just get up and do it because that's just what I do every morning. Right. Same with drinking the lemon water. Same with kind of filling out my daily planner, and just knowing what my things are to do for that day. So finding ways to build these things into becoming your habits, whatever that might be, whether that's your workout, like Ryan every day goes and works out when he's done with work. So in the evening he works out. I will find little blank spaces on my schedule, and I literally schedule them in on my Google Calendar when I'm going to get my workout in between clients. So just kind of having those little things that you can almost have on repeat. And for those that are struggling to build those habits, there's a great episode on, I don't know, I think it's number 16 on, now it's called Real AF, the Andy Frisella's podcast. But forewarning, Andy Frisella has a very, very colorful way of talking. But he talks about what he calls the power list. And basically it's having a list of things that you're going to do every single day that you're working on building into becoming a habit, or they're like top priority lists for anybody that, in the business world, basically like your KPIs, your key performance indicators. What are the things that you're going to track every single day? And, if you're working on building in a habit, let's say you're working on building in working out. So that will go on your list every single day. And that's one of the things that you have to check off. It's one of your critical tasks. So having like 3 to 5 like big things that you're trying to accomplish that day, and they don't all have to be habit based, but it could be, like you have a big presentation you need to prepare for or something like that. Like that will go on there because that's something that has to get done. But setting yourself up with like little lists and checklists of did I do it? Did I not do it? And then keeping track. We talked about that so many times on here. That's the magic of the Forge is having that calendar where you are checking the things off. It's, keeping the streaks. So
Right.
I just wanted to mention that, doing that, building those habits into your routine, which at first can be very, very difficult. And so that's where you have to find ways to kind of hold yourself accountable, have somebody else hold you accountable. But I was listening to one of Andy's podcasts recently, and he said that, it's all about momentum. Because once you build momentum, then you're cooking with grease. But momentum is only acquired through some bit of force. So at the beginning, it typically kind of sucks, or it's challenging, or it's hard. Use the old analogy of pushing a train from a dead stop, like how much force and energy it takes to get that thing moving. But once it gets moving, then it's hard to stop. And I find the same thing goes for any kind of endeavor that we're on, whether that be fitness, whether that be practicing golf, working on skills. Sometimes it's hard to get ourselves, like, to pull ourselves off the couch to go do it. But then once we get in that habit of doing it, then you start to see the progress, then you start to see the rewards. And then it's like you almost get addicted to doing it. And then you want to keep on doing it. Like for golf, we've all experienced that addiction where you play and then you play and you see yourself getting better and better. And then all you want to do is go continue to play. Same thing with workouts. You start to see your body changing. You start to feel stronger. You start to maybe see what your body is doing now on the golf course because you've been working out. It helps promote all those better habits, helps make you want to eat better, helps make you want to be a little bit more responsible when you do go out to those parties and, what you're eating, what you're drinking, getting up early in the morning and doing your exercises and things like that. So building those habits are really the key to becoming successful. And I think ultimately that's what working smarter, not harder is figuring out how you can break these things down. What are the very most important and most efficient pieces that you can continue to build in on a daily basis, and then continue to almost like strip off the other things that are not nearly as important, that at one point, maybe we thought they were, but you start to see, and that would be, some of these workouts that just don't make sense. You thought that was the way to do it, but now that you see like what the important things are that you need in your workouts, and we always tell you, the big five for the workouts: the push, the pull, squat, hinge, rotate. Like those are the things for your strength workout. The main pieces of mobility for a golfer: you need your neck to turn, you need your shoulders to move well, you need your trunk to rotate, you need your hips to move well, right? And then you need to build the stability around that with those big pieces in your strength components. Nutrition, first we're typically looking at calories. Depending on what your goals are, we're typically looking at calories, we're looking at protein intake, and we're looking at the quality of your food. Those three things right there are kind of the big deal. Everything else is us trying to complicate things. And as Tony Robbins says, complexity is the enemy of execution. The more complex you make it, the more confused you're going to be, the more energy you have to expend trying to quote unquote figure it out. Just keep it as simple as possible. Speed, in our speed training, we talked with Chris Finn, and the biggest takeaway of that whole chat that we had with him, after they've done all of their studies, they've looked at super speed and some of these overspeed training devices and things like that. And he said, you know what, pound for pound, just grab your driver and swing it 10 times really, really fast, take a 2-minute break, do it again, take a 2-minute break, do it again. And right. The numbers are pretty darn close to what you're going to find with a lot of these different speed training devices. The volume was way less. The simplicity of what you had to buy, you already had, so keeping things as simple as possible. It's in our nature to overcomplicate things. Cardio, like as far as cardio for the people on this call that are obviously golfers, walking is awesome for your heart health, for your body, for your back, for all these things. And then, if you are wanting to get that, your heart racing a little bit, doing the intervals. So keeping it a little bit simpler. Intervals are going to be more applicable to golf because it's quick bursts and then relax, quick bursts and then relax. And think about the nature of golf. It's a quick swing, and then you're typically walking for several minutes, and then it's a quick swing. So that mimics a little bit more of what you're trying to do on the golf course, as opposed to going and jogging for 45 minutes straight, or the elliptical or any of those things. So do the simple things exceptionally well, but you got to do them over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Remember, so Jeff and I had, when we each had our own separate business, we shared the same accountant, and his big thing was always, you just got to make the donuts, guys. Just keep doing that same thing over and over. And the cumulative effect of that is what will build a business, that in that context. And the same thing applies to your fitness. And I think I was thinking about this the other day because Kendra was looking at, sorry, Bodine, looking at Forerunners. Jeff wants to buy that car. But it's like, gosh, the cars have gotten so damn complicated these days. You can't work on them. They have so many bells and whistles. And it's like and I was thinking, like, philosophically, like, it used to just be to get from point A to point B. Super, super simple. Now you add in all this other stuff, like this 1% stuff that you never really use. And then it's just more stuff to go wrong. And that's kind of how this is. Like, a lot of this is for either, super high-end athletes who are working on that last 1%, just trying to tweak that, squeeze another, if you're a basketball player, another 2 points per game out of it, another 2 yards. These PGA guys, if they can squeeze one less stroke over the course of a weekend, that's a huge deal for them. But otherwise, it's just a bunch of advertising and marketing BS that doesn't work for any of us. It's all this, oh, here's the miracle, 6 minute, 3 minute shredded abs. Like, that's number one, that's a lie. But there's all this other stuff that is completely unnecessary for us 99% of the people.
Yeah, and I would say that the highest performers are the ones that they still do those basic things, though. Like, they don't get rid of those basic things and jump towards this bright, shiny object stuff. I just heard a great story about Kobe Bryant, and he was always the one that was in the gym at 4 a.m. Practice started at like 9, so he'd be there at 4 a.m. But even before that, he'd get there because somebody was going to meet him, and they were like, oh, I'm going to get there early to kind of show Kobe I'm serious. So they got there at 3:30. Well, Kobe was already in there stretching and warming up, like he was already going through his standard warm-up routine. And he's like, oh, his workout starts at 4, but his warm-up started at, 3:20. And every morning he ran through the same things and did the same basic things, worked on small shots, worked on layups, worked on those types of things. So they don't get rid of those. They continue to master those and continue to focus on the basics and the fundamentals. And then they start to bring in these other pieces that are considered the 1%, but it's only because they've already got the other ones down and continue to do it. And I saw Brandon said that routine and habits is vital in the game of golf too. And that's absolutely. I've been talking to a guy by the name of Dr. Gaston Cordova, who I will get on the show sometime. And he works with golfers from a mental and performance standpoint. And we were just talking, we were actually talking before I went to the member guest a couple of weeks ago, just to start to work on a couple of things that we can then kind of hopefully bring to our audience as well. And he was saying a couple of things that as a golfer, many people neglect is, first of all, we've all heard about the pre-shot routine, right? And having a pre-shot routine. But he said, you have to have that dialed in so much. And then he sent me a video on Instagram, and it was a side-by-side of Tiger Woods. One shot one day with a driver, one shot the next day with, I think, a mid-iron. But when you watched it, as soon as he stepped in to go make the shot, it was like within nanoseconds, everything he did, looking at the target, looking at his club, taking his takeaway, everything was lined up synchronously. Like he was, what do they call that in when they're swimming, when they do all
synchronized
swimming? Yeah. It was like seeing the side by side, and the timing was exactly the same on both of these shots. I don't know if it was from the same week or from weeks apart, but it's having those routine habits, or having those habits so ingrained that you do them automatically. But then he said, even more important is having a system for when things don't go right. So when you're on the golf course, like if you hit a bad shot, what do you do? And most people don't have any kind of a system for what to do right then after they hit their shot. So we talked about a couple possible breathing techniques. What is it that you say to yourself? Like, oh, that's not me, like it could be anything, but having something that can take you out of that moment where you're really vulnerable to get upset or get angry or, hit another bad shot. What's your system of, okay, that was something that just happened. We did a little, like a double inhale and then a long exhale to really just kind of calm down, get to the parasympathetic again. So having those routines and habits in golf, like Brandon said, is so, so important because it gets you right back on track. Golf's an easy game for us to really kind of get out there, and bad things happen or something out of the ordinary happen, and it kind of rattles you. But if you have something like an anchor that you can hold on to bring you back into the moment and get you focused on that next shot, it's so, so important and so helpful to get you back into the game.
Yeah. What did Brandon say? How do you say that? James Siekman, the post-shot routine.
Yeah, exactly. I forget exactly what we talked about when we had James on, but yeah, I remember him having, like might've been a couple of questions that you asked yourself, but yeah, the post-shot routine to be able to reflect on what just happened and how you're going to use that into the rest of your round or into your next shot.
Yeah, that's so James Siekman, his post shot routine is either it's a good shot and it is an outcome, or you kind of replay the shot in your mind as to it being a good shot. So you really go through the process again, and you want to stamp into your mind the good shots, and then the bad shots you're saying, well, that really wasn't like me, and it's just something as that. Whereas if you start to get that negative side of it, where if you imprint that by getting overly mad and dwell on it and not forget it and be like, oh, I have this catalog of a lot of good shots that are like me. If you start doing the opposite, where you're like, you're essentially putting a mental Rolodex of the bad shots. So then it's a tough thing to break, and it's hard to do. I think human nature is to kind of be more inclined to be negative. And so you see
for sure
people do that all the time. And it's a real challenge, and it takes a lot of discipline, because everyone has a pre-shot routine. They pick their club, they throw some grass, shoot the yardage, pick the club, pick your target, and then you slice it in the water. And you're like, you freak out, right?
Yeah.
And the next hole you come up and there's water, short and right, and you have that stamped in your head from the last time it happened. And his big philosophy was to say, yeah, that's not like me, but every once in a while I hit a bad shot. You watch a professional golfer play, they hit some really bad shots. You're like, ooh, like John Rahm shanked one in a tournament. He cold shanked one at the Memorial, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then he gets up there and he makes a bogey on the hole, because he had a really good force shot. He had to take a drop, and I was like, oh, I'm like, the rest of the world is making a double or a triple, but I'm like, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Brandon, because I can remember years ago when I was playing with my buddy in Kansas City, and I hit a bad shot, and he's like, man, that's not you. And I remember like how refreshing that sounded to me. It was really kind of interesting. I was like, yeah, that's not me. Like, and it was so great to hear. And I make a point to try to say that sometimes when I'm playing with somebody that kind of hits one out of the blue, because just as a reminder, like, yeah, that's not how you usually hit the ball. And, so you don't say it as like a derogatory thing. It's like, no, man, that's not you. That was just kind of just a little mishit. No big deal. And also we just posted or reposted something that the Corn Ferry Tour put out on Instagram, and it was Ed Milet. He was up at the Corn Ferry event last week, and it was like three keys for a golfer, and the last one was exactly that, like to separate yourself from it. And he said, you know, like, tell yourself, you hit a bad shot, man, that's not like me. So it's kind of funny that this theme continues to pop up. But yeah, it's so important to have those things baked in. And Brandon mentioned having like a Rolodex. This was also a big key that Dr. Cordova and I were talking about, is have a Rolodex of like really good shots or really good feelings or really good moments that you've had on the golf course. And don't just, so think about some that you've had. And I would even encourage you to write some of those down. Like, you know, what's a great shot that you had with your driver? What's a great putt that you can literally like pull up the visualization of that? What's, you know, so do it almost for every club. But then from here on out, as you're playing and you hit a shot like that, I want you to like live in that shot for a moment and say like, this one's going in the memory bank. Like that, like I'm going to take what I'm feeling right now. So you almost have to like then project it into the next time you're on the golf course. I'm going to take this, you know, like if you made a big, huge putt, like a 20-foot, you know, dipper that, you know, you weren't expected to make and you win the tournament or whatever. I can picture one from the other day that I made it like snuck around the back edge of the hole and like fell in and just dropped. And it's like, all right, I'm going to hold on to that one. And that's going to be one of those memories that I pull up when I need a little bit of a boost, or when I hit a putt that was not great, or when I'm standing over a big important putt, and pull that up and remember like, yeah, I was the guy that made that big putt. Or, you know, there's a couple tee shots that I can picture from just recently, like, man, that's probably the best drive I've hit in months. And so just being able to pull those back up. I mean, I can picture Ryan and I played the same course on Friday mornings, and it's funny. I can probably picture more bad shots on this one hole. There's a par 5, trees on the right, and I can't tell you how many balls I've hit into those right trees. But the last time I played there, I hit one of the best drives I've ever hit. And so now it's a matter of when I step on that tee box, that good drive thought has to outweigh the bad drive thought, right? And I have to just kind of play that over and over and over and really trust in that swing. Because, you know, mechanics, we've got good mechanics, we've got bad mechanics. Sometimes it's a little tweak, but it's not because you're actively doing something. It's, you know, you got to let your body kind of take over and trust the fact that you hit that good shot so you can hit it again.
Right. That's pretty good. Go ahead, Marina.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment that Brandon says there about Gary Player's nightly routine, because it's been proven that, one of my habits is that I do write down in my journal every time after I played my 3 best shots and how I executed them and how I felt. But the best way of doing it is apparently just before you go to bed or an hour before, because that's when your brain waves are sort of more receptive to store this in your mind. And then another comment that I'd just say is what is extremely important. We're talking about, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to play this really, really well. Well, it might happen that there's a bad lie or something happens. So I find that the acceptance is huge. So you do have to accept that John Rahm hit a shank. Okay, so if he can do it, I can do it. So if you go out and you think that I'm going to do my best, these are my commitments for the day, but I'm going to accept that I'm going to hit bad shots. You ask any big golfer and he would say that it's only a few times a year that he hits really good shots the whole way around. So I think acceptance in this discussion is huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what makes it hard is like when you watch these guys on Sunday, they don't show the bad shots. You just see the best guys in the world playing their best, which makes it look like, oh, Jesus, I got no chance. But it is, sorry, John Rahm, but it's refreshing to see you shank one like that.
Yeah, when you go to an event you know, when I got to go to the Corn Ferry event, I know Ryan,
Yeah.
you were at the Phoenix Open. I know probably everybody on here has been to some sort of a golf event, and you follow a guy around for a full round, or a couple of guys around for a full round. You get to see that firsthand. Like they don't always hit the shot that they're attempting to hit. Now the key is that their next shot is usually a pretty darn good recovery from the
Right.
one that they missed. They don't tend to go off the rails all that often. Marina, I was going to ask you, because I know that you've worked with Gary and Carl a lot, pre-shot routine wise, what are the questions that you ask yourself? Because I know that you guys have talked a lot about, you know, it's important to figure out what you're focusing on, but your focus is really created by what questions you're asking yourself.
Yeah. So we tend to not call them routines, because routine is boring in your mind. You take out the rubbish in the morning or whatever. So we call them pre-shot creation.
Okay.
So you are there to solve the puzzle of the golf club and to create that shot that you have in that moment. So somehow you have to trigger yourself. For me, I take my club, and that's a trigger for putting me into my zone. So when then after that, I can't hear if anybody is talking or anything is happening, train coming, whatever. I don't hear it. I am so focused on seeing that, you know, that shot, feeling it, just seeing how it's going to fly. So the questions are the most important. So it is quite simple. It's what is the shot here? What is the best shot here? And you will see it, and you will describe it. You verbalize it to yourself as if you have a caddy. Like when I played with Gary, you know, he had me verbalize it all the time, and afterwards he said, "Keep verbalizing your shot, because you then reinforce the brain what you're meant to do, and what does the ball need to do to hit this shot, or when you're putting, it's simple." Is it possible for the putt to go in? Of course it is. What does this putt need to do? It has to go on the right, at the right pace and on the right line. But the line is obviously a wider one. It's not a very thin one. So those are the questions. Is it possible that you are going to hit the best drive on this fairway, you know, that you've ever hit? Of course it is. And you have to see it. We use colors a lot as well. We use sort of like highways, so we can see how you, like an orange track, you know, shot tracker, quite wide one. We never narrow them, because that makes you tight. And you can ask yourself. I ask myself, am I 10 when I'm in my zone? So that means that you're athletic lower body, but you're still sort of mobile on the other. So the questions are really important for your brain, aren't they? Because that focus your attention. So it is really, and then breathing, obviously. So you relax when you're in that zone. So that's how we normally do it.
I love it.
Easy.
Yeah, I remember them talking about when you're putting, you know, instead of thinking of a line, thinking of a gutter, like a gutter on a house, where, you know, you've got a lot more freedom, because it all depends on pace, obviously. So it's not one single straight line.
Yeah. So like volcanoes, lava, what you call it, lava that goes in like an orange, and it just drops into the hole, and it's really vivid.
Right.
And you just look at the hole all the time when you're trying to. You don't think about your technique or anything. You just feel that putt go into that hole. It's awesome.
Yeah. And just another plug for those guys, I would highly recommend. I still think their first book is so good, The Lost Art of Putting, and it applies to so much else. But if you haven't read that one, go read that. To speak real quickly on the verbalizing piece, that's such an important factor. And I bet all of you have experienced this at some point. Say you're playing in a scramble, or you're playing with a friend, and maybe you're like playing with a friend and kind of joking around and kind of showing off a little bit. And you're like, all right, watch this one. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hit, you know, a high draw. It's gonna land on the right side of the green. It's gonna roll up, and it's gonna, you know, sneak up by the hole. And then you hit that shot. That has happened to me a lot where, and going back to that member guest that I played in, TJ, my partner, he's the member of the club, right? So he knows the course really well. So I tell him, I'm like, coach me all you want. I want you to tell me like where to hit it, help me read putts, because I trust him, first of all, but I also have figured out over the last 3 years of playing with him that it helps me so much to talk through those things for me to then better visualize what I'm really trying to do. Whereas if I just go up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to hit it there, that doesn't help me. But if I am able to talk it through with him, and then you get a little bit more understanding of what you're wanting the ball to do. If you know what you want the ball to do, you start to like just naturally understand a little bit more of what you want your club to do. And it just all helps to organize. So Gary and Carl say it all the time. Does the swing create the shot, or does the shot create the swing? And if you focus on what the shot needs to look like, if you focus on what needs to happen with that shot, then let your body take over in the moment, you're so much more likely to have success with that rather than trying to manipulate in the moment. That is not the time when you're out on the golf course trying to play and trying to execute and score. That is not the time for you to be fiddling with your technique. That's the time to just trust that your work has been put in, or that it hasn't been put in. And like Marina said, then accept that some things aren't going to go your way, and just understand that, because you're not as prepared as you could be. And that's fine. But if you have put the work in, all of those swings on the driving range, on the practice range, all those little putts and chips that you've hit, if you've done the work, now it's time to trust the work that you've done, focus on what needs to be, what the outcome needs to be, and then just trust the process, which sounds a lot like what we talk about with our fitness programs too, Rhino. Like, see what you want to be at the end, and then, trust the process that it's just going to happen. Don't try to do all these crazy things in between to try to shortcut your way to it. Just, let it happen.
Yeah, I know we talk about like in St. Louis, there's again washers, which is very similar to like horseshoes, and it's like
or bags.
Or bags are one of them. You never think about your technique when you're doing that. You just throw it, and the outcome is I want to throw it in the hole, or I want to throw it on the stake or whatever. And that's like it's a huge thing, because I mean, like you said, when you're just screwing around and you hit like the Bubba Watson in the Masters, or it happens all the time where like in a scramble, or you have some extra time, nobody's behind you. You hit one shot, you shank the bejesus out of it. And the next one you hit a dart in the middle of the
right.
I mean, I bet that's happened 100 times.
Yeah.
It's because we're just stupid golfers in our heads so much. We just need to, have that. I like that Rolodex of having the good shot. And I wonder if, the guys who get the yips going the other way, if their Rolodex of bad like throws just takes over and they just can't get that out of their brain.
So I was just reading about the yips, and actually reading about Rick Ankiel. So think about it, even baseball term wise, is it just starts to perpetuate on itself. So you have this random thing happens, like, oh shoot, that was weird. But then when you get in that situation again, you start to think about it again, and then it happens again. And so it's like just fueling the beast, and you start to perseverate on every time that you're almost in that situation. Your mind takes over and starts to like, oh, don't do this, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water. Right. And then what do? You hit it in the water. So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a total mental thing, this whole loop of you screwing up, then getting frustrated that you screwed up, then thinking about screwing up, and then the next time the situation occurs, you start to think about it again, and then it just kind of like self-perpetuates. And yeah, the yips is exactly that. You had Chuck Knobloch, you had Rick Ankiel. Those guys Ankiel could throw a ball from center field to the catcher in the same position, but from the mound couldn't do it. Knobloch couldn't throw from second base to first base.
Right. Maggie Sasser as a catcher couldn't just throw it back to the pitcher after a pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. That just shows how powerful our brain is and how much it can take over. So reverse effect, how powerful it is to just take over to make good things happen too.
Right. yeah, you can make the case. Don't worry about the physical part. I mean, everybody here is athletic enough to swing a club. Just figure out between the ears. Work on that. Kind of like the obese person. Don't worry about the. Obviously worry about the exercise, but focus on the nutrition first.
Mhm.
Maybe, focus on the brain first, and then get down to the nuts and bolts stuff.
Well, and that's where Will Robbins,
Yeah.
he talks a lot about, like if your goal is really to score better, you have to just learn how to manage your game better. It's not, we practice all wrong. It's not all about technique. It's about, managing your game and learning some of those things. In fact, and Brandon probably knows a little bit about this. Decade Golf, Brandon, have you heard of that with Scott Fawcett? I believe that Hayden Buckley connected with Scott Fawcett and just learned some more about how, like statistically, how to manage his rounds better. And, last week, or, made the US Open immediately after that, made it through the cuts. But
Great.
I remember him saying that, he didn't change a whole lot as far as what he was doing physically, but they just had a little better strategy going in and worked a few things out on their game plan. And I think that's what he was referring to in that interview.
Yeah. So, that's it's pretty impressive. So Will Zalatoris is a decade guy as well.
Yep.
With Scott Fawcett, and even at Will Zalatoris in the majors has been extremely impressive. And a lot of what Scott Fawcett, he was a player, got his amateur status back, and kind of went into like the golf advising. He's not necessarily a golf coach because he loses amateur status, I want to say, if he was, giving lessons.
Oh, gotcha.
But it's pretty fascinating, and it really comes down to like, what's your target, right? Is this appropriate based on strokes gain methodology, right? So, for instance, if you're 125 yards out and you're Tiger Woods in his prime, and the pin is whatever 3 paces from the left edge, and there's water left, Tiger Woods could probably land that ball, 90 out of 100 times within a 10-foot circle. But if he misses on the left of that 10-foot circle, it's in the water, right? So then all of a sudden his strokes gain starts trending the other way. So he gets into, well, the proper target is nowhere near the water, right? I don't care that you have a gap wedge in your hand. Like, you're aiming right of the pin, and that's kind of what it gets to. So even Will Zalatoris, I think it was 17, he was talking through his caddy, and I'm like, man, he's got to hit it, close. And he was like, I'm going to aim one pin right. I'm like, oh, but that's the decade method, because he goes through that strategy. And it really comes down to like the simple things: no penalty strokes, right? Throughout a round of golf, avoiding 3 putts, no double chips, right? And you'd be surprised. There's guys that you're like, oh, I got a bunker shot or whatever. And the next thing you know, they try and get cute and they don't get it out of the bunker. And it's like, okay, the PGA Tour average out of the bunker from this is 50%. So if you get it on the green within 15 feet, that's another PGA Tour average is 25%. So really your odds are you're going to make a bogey. But if you leave it in the bunker, now your odds are going to make a double bogey. So over the course of 72 holes, over the course of, a PGA Tour season, say to play 3 tournaments a month, that all adds up. And those strokes, even though you might only gain, a stroke here or there, it really makes a huge difference. Even like you look at like a guy like Jason Day, a few years ago, he was like dead last towards the bottom on PGA Tour scoring on par 3s. He literally went into the next season and said, I am not looking at the pin. I want to know the yardage to the middle of the green on every single par 3. And he went from like one of the dead last to like top 10%. And he literally said, all I was trying to do is get in the middle of the green. And I'm like, that's impressive. So it's a statistical strategy type of mentality, because, these guys hit bad shots too, so it's like managing your misses.
Yeah.
Yeah. The data doesn't lie.
Yeah. It goes right in line with the theme of the call is, be smart, work smarter about it, and understand, you don't have to hit that super miraculous shot. Make the high percentage shot, save yourself a stroke or 2 or 3, and move on,
It's pretty, there's so much uniqueness and fascination that goes in with all of this, because it even comes down to personality type, right? So, you got a guy like Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. Arnold Palmer played his best when he was like super social, and he got out there and he was going for it, right? He's going to go for the par four, but he played to his personality. Where if he tried to play like Jack Nicklaus, who was much more a plotter, strategy, planned his way around the golf course, he probably wouldn't have played as well, because he wasn't playing to his personality. So you see that, Phil Mickelson misses a short putt and he looks at the crowd, smiles, and gives a thumb up. And I'm like, he was pretty successful at that, and he had a great career. Whereas Tiger Woods would have dropped an F-bomb, thrown his club and thought about it. So it's really interesting. You kind of got to do like a personality test and then determine, if that's right for you, so it's there's so many different, methodologies, because shoot, there's the guys out there that are really good at golf that they want nothing to do with like, tell me the statistics on this, telling them the statistics, and, they played their entire career aiming at the pin, and you're like, no, you need to, aim at this side. They'd be like, it'd probably throw them off a little bit. So it's really neat. You see it a lot now. Everyone hits driver on the short holes. So like back in the day, you hear Faldo announce, he's like, Sir Nick, you can't call him Faldo anymore, but Sir Nick would be like, back in my day, it would just be a 3-iron and a chip wedge, right? And stress free. But all the guys in the tour know are like, well, if I crank it up there by the green, I might shave off over the course of the entire season, just a tiny little bit of percentage, and it's going to give me, a little bit of an advantage. So pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
That's wild. And a couple $100,000 too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They're just signing a lift back.
Yeah. Or just sign a live contract. They don't have to worry about anything.
Then you can stop practicing.
Right. Exactly.
All right. I think we're a couple minutes over here. So any last wrap ups, Rhino?
No, I think you're good. So we've got the Val Cup today with the boys tonight. For everybody listening, our younger boys have a soccer tournament that they just put together on their own, 3v3 tournament. So I'm gonna go get a workout and head over there, watch these boys, maybe have a few cold ones.
Yeah. So just quick brief history on the Val Cup. Val is my grandpa Val, and he basically was like Ryan's grandpa as well. And he was kind of a soccer legend here in St. Louis and coached at St. Louis University for 30 years, then Washington University. And it's pretty amazing that these youngsters, so now they're kind of the age of 15 down to like 10, 11. So they put together this tournament the year after my grandpa passed, and they call it the Val Cup, and they've organized the whole thing themselves. It's the coolest event. And last year, the St. Louis University soccer coaching staff came out to watch some of the old, like, all-American players that won national championships back in the 70s. These guys are like coming to my sister's backyard to hang out, to watch these kids play. It's one of the cool, it gives me chills just talking about it. It's one of the coolest things that we have as a now a new tradition in our family. Our family has tons of traditions, but these boys started one of the coolest ones. So we're always excited to go out to the Val Cup, and we all miss Grandpa Val, but this is one way to really have him kind of smile down on all the boys, and they play some great soccer, and so we'll have a good time watching them this afternoon. So
yeah, it'll be a good night.
It'll be good. And Grandpa Val, he was a work smart, but he was also a work hard guy. So he would approve of our message today, but he was all about, hustle and play your tail off. So that's the message that we'll leave for all of you guys is Grandpa Val telling us all to hustle and work hard and work smart.
That's right. Cool. All right. On that note, guys, we'll see you guys next week.
Catch you next week. Stay strong.